Welcome to another vintage fishing reel service video. In this episode we have a Zebco Hoss, sort of like the Sherman tank of the Zebco Spincast reels, mainly because it's made for larger freshwater fish like catfish and carp and that kind of thing, and does not have a drag, so it's direct drive. So this is kind of a horse 'em in type situation. This particular one is one of the early versions. So this model ran from 1975 to 1981. In 1975, the reel looked pretty much just like this, except it was brown instead of black. And then in 1976, they immediately went to black. And from 1975 through 1976, the name on it was a metal plate like that. And then in 1977 through 79, they pretty much looked just the same as this, except for they just had a decal here, and the decal was gold and black and silver. I don't have one of the 77 through 79 versions, but the 600s pretty much look the same way in terms of the nameplate. So it's just a decal, and on the 700 it would have had gold Zebco, and then 700, or can't remember if it said 700 Hoss or just Hoss. I think it said 700 Hoss, but I'm not positive on that. But and then in 1980, they went to both the 600s and the 700s went to the copper top version, which I think is probably the best looking reel aesthetically of any that Zebco ever made, the 600 and 700 copper tops. So that's what a 700 Hoss, and this is the correct handle for that run between 1980 and 81. Now this one, because it's black, because it has the metal nameplate, is a 1976, and in both 75 and 76 they just had a single knob handle, but the knob was more of one of those torpedo shaped ones like you see on some of the bait casters and that kind of thing. It wasn't like this, and it had this sort of counterweight type deal over here. So this handle looks just like what the catalogs show for the years 1975 and 1976, except it's got this standard knob. It's not one of those torpedo shaped knobs, and this one doesn't look monkeyed with. So I don't know if there was a variation where they had a handle like this with this different knob on it, or whether this is a replacement of something else, but the handle looks just like they would have, except for the different knob there. And then of course in 77 they went to this kind of a handle and stuck with that till the end of the run in 81. So that's a little bit about the history and dating these things. I don't know the extent to which there's much difference on the inside. This is the first Hoss I've done. I haven't done this one yet. I eventually will. If I see differences, I'll do a video on this one. But for now, we're going to start on this 1976 version of the Zebco Hoss. Okay, so we're going to start with taking off the cover, which involves a couple of screws here. And this one, I'm not sure if it's the original screw. If it is, it's not wanting to screw down all the way. I suspect it is not. I suspect somebody lost a screw. I could be wrong. But I don't know that you really have to take them all the way out. I think you can just loosen them and then pull the cover straight off. Never been inside this one, so I have no idea what's going on in here. Okay, it looks like there's no rubber or any kind of thing for the line stop. It must just run the line up against the cap. What is interesting is this sort of track here that the teeth on the spinner head rest down in there. And I don't know if that helps keep the line from getting fouled up underneath there or what, but that's kind of an interesting design that I haven't seen on any other Zebcos. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and take off the nut up here and get this spinner head off. Okay, and there's your trip mechanism there and a D-shaped hole, so that can go into the parts tray. There is no drag on this, so the question is, how do you get off the spool? I don't know. Let's keep going and see. I don't want to force anything, so we'll just keep going and see what things look like on the inside. Take off the handle and the rear cover. Again, I'm just going to loosen these, and then the cover should slide off. And you can see that one's got a lot of old dirty grease in there. Hasn't been serviced in a while. Maybe this spool, I can't hardly believe that spool isn't made to come off. It does have, by the way, I forgot to mention, it does have selective anti-reverse. So you can turn the anti-reverse off and then back on. And this is standard Zebco anti-reverse on some of these reels from that time period. You just slide this thing back, and then that allows you to, here's the little actuator for the anti-reverse, and that whole assembly, pinion gear, axle shaft, and that actuator and the spring and all that comes out. So you don't have to take the spring off to get all that out of there. And then assume this, you can move this out of the way enough, you can just pull the main gear right out. And that's pretty much all there is to this thing. The question is that spool designed to come out of there? I'm having a feeling that it's sort of pressed in there. You dare not force it. You'll bend that spool, but it looks like there's some kind of a stop right there. I'm gonna pull the try to get a hold of that horrid yellow line in there and get this stripped of its line. Okay, I got the line off, but one of the problems I see right away with not being able to get this spool off is that, and then having this trackway here in the way, is that I had a heck of a time without trying to pull on heavy line like this and just snap it's not easy. But I had a heck of a time trying to get my X-Acto knife down in there to cut the knot, and I still don't think I got the knot out of there. I'm gonna have to get a longer knife down in there to get all of the old line out. But and then as much of these as I do, and I never trust the line that's on them, so I throw out a lot of line. And what I do with this is basically burn it. The reason for that is if you throw, and of course this wasn't very much line, sometimes there's quite a lot of line on a spool. If you throw that in the trash, well, where's the trash go? Ends up in a landfill, sometimes exposed for a period of time until it's buried. And of course, in a landfill where there's food scraps and that kind of thing, there may be seagulls and other birds and who knows what that can get tangled in that and cause a real mess, can swallow it, and just cause a real mess. So even though it's not an ideal thing to dispose of, it's better to just burn it or melt it so that it isn't a tangled mess to interfere with wildlife and that kind of thing. So, but there's not much else to do here. So I'm going to put this in the parts tray with the rest of it and go to the sink and get some WD-40 in there, get a cotton swab through all the journals in hard to get places, and then do a final wash with Dawn dishwashing soap and a toothbrush, and I'll be back just like that. I forgot to mention in terms of line test and capacity, these were spooled with 80 yards of 20-pound test. I don't think I remembered to mention that. But at any rate, let's get all these parts out here. And start putting them back together. There really isn't that much to it. So I'm going to, well, I guess I can go ahead and start to grease the main gear. And then oil the main gear shaft. Get that back into place. Spins very nicely, very smoothly. We can then grease the pinion gear and oil that and this. Because that's D-shaped all the way down. Well, the pinion gear is D-shaped too, so I guess I'll sneak some oil underneath there and work that in. And then when we put this in, we just have to make sure that this tab right there ends up in this hole right there. And then take and move, slide, yeah, it's not in the hole all the way yet. Okay, now it's in, and then slide that cover over it, and that keeps it in place. So now, turn our anti-reverse on. You can see that it's working. Turn it off, and you have no anti-reverse. Looks to me like that. You see that? Looks to me like that axle shaft is bent, doesn't it? Which is probably why you're getting a little grind when you back wind or something. Doesn't seem to affect it too much. I don't know. I don't think it's going to make the spinner head wobble. The gears don't look terribly worn at all. Maybe the bend's above the pinion gear, and don't think I'm going to worry about it. Looks like the bend's, I don't know how somebody would get that bent. But the bend is above the pinion gear, so I don't think it's going to have undue wear on the teeth, so I'm not going to mess with it. I am going to get some oil down under these anti-reverse parts, and then the pivot points, including the pivot point of the selective anti-reverse. And wait a minute, what's that? Could this be how you get off that collar? Or the spool? There it is. There it is. I was going to say, if somebody knew how to do that, leave it in the comments, but that sure makes a lot more sense that there's a way to get that spool off of there. Now I can get in there and clean. I'll show you here in a minute in case you couldn't see that, how that works. You can see I didn't get all the dirt out of that trackway either. Look at that. Look at that. Not a very efficient job in the sink. I didn't get this trackway cleaned out. Look at all the dirt that came out of that trackway. Bits of leaves and stuff from the lake. Who knows when the last time it was used. I bought this for, I think, $10 or $15. So that's not bad. It's not the deal of the century. When you go to a fishing tackle show or something, you're going to pay more usually than if you're at a flea market or somewhere where fishing items aren't the subject of the thing. All right. So the way that came out, so it looks like it goes in here. Okay, and then so it goes in like that. See that little? They're on both. There's two of them, but it goes in like that, and then you turn that like that. You turn it into that narrow part of that hole, and then you take. Where's my screwdriver? Then you take your screwdriver, and you bring this hook. I don't know if you can see that. You bring that hook over it, and then that locks it into place. So to take it off, you just swing that hook back, twist to the clockwise, and pull out. So it goes in, and then you have a slight counterclockwise twist, and then push that claw back over it, and that holds it in place. Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. I don't feel particularly good when I can't figure out how to take something off or don't know whether it's supposed to come off, because I don't want to break anything. So now we're ready to just simply put the spinner head back on. Oops, what did I forget? I forgot to oil. What do I do with my oil now? I forgot to oil the this little trip mechanism here. Work that in, and then we can line up the hole with the shaft there, get that on, and then return the nut. And we can take and put the rear cover back on. Wait a minute. I got the darn rear cover on backwards. Dummy. Look at that. All right, so the drain hole goes down underneath, you know, basically next to this, and then let's see, maybe it won't let you. No, that ain't the drain hole. I guess it doesn't have a drain hole. That slit there's for your selective anti-reverse. Well, that's odd. There's no drain hole on it. Huh. Well, that's unfortunate. I mean, you could always drill one, but I don't like to modify them, so get this back on there, and then tighten down these screws, and then get the handle back on. I just have a feeling that that is a factory handle for this, and that they may have had some variants. I'll try to put a picture of what the sort of the torpedo knobbed one looked like, but boy, that sure fits perfectly, and otherwise totally looks Zebco to me, unless it came from a different Zebco reel. I'll have to look online and see if there are others like this. But boy, that works nice now. Now, let's wipe it down and see about doing some aesthetics, taking care of some aesthetic issues. All of these namely all of these scratches. So I'm going to take some, I'm not going to paint the whole thing. I'm just going to paint the scratches. And this paint will be sort of a matte color when it dries, or a matte luster when it dries. So it won't stick out too bad from the rest of the paint. These covers, by the way, are aluminum, so they're not gonna, this is not about preventing corrosion. It's not going into salt water. Aluminum's not gonna corrode in fresh water, so it's just about aesthetics. All serviced and cleaned up, touched up. A 1976 Zebco Hoss. Direct drive, no drag. Heavy hauler. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.